Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Today is a very impactful show. You're talking about a beast mindset. Think about this. You're happily married, you're starting your life, you got 6 kids, you're in perfect health, you and your husband, your kids, and all of a sudden you go to the hospital and they tell you your whole life is about to change. You don't understand it, but your partner has to understand it because you've been the one whose life is about to change because you've been diagnosed with something. But not only is your life about to change, but so is your partner, so is your kids, so is your whole surrounding community. This young lady has gone viral with sharing such a beautiful story of having that beast mindset, keeping the family together, keeping the marriage alive, believing that there's a purpose for what she's doing. I'd like to welcome to the show the beautiful Lindsay E. Kelly. What's up, Lindsay?
Hey, thanks for having me.
You asked me not to use the E, but I'm going to use the E because it just sounds so good, Lindsay E. Kelly.
I like it.
You're going to the internet with such a beautiful timeline of your life. I saw it. We was talking during the pre-interview. Before we get into your journey, tell the viewers a little bit about who you are.
I'm Lindsay Kelly. I am a lover of one amazing man. I am a mother of 6 children. I've been married to my husband for 21 years, and he is diagnosed with progressive MS, and so we are finding ourselves in the midst of battling those the challenges that come with that.
You mentioned that's a long time to be married. How did you meet your husband? Tell me how that started.
Let's see. So actually, his siblings and my siblings were all were friends. I knew some of his siblings, and he knew my siblings, but he and I had never met, which was good. This is like God's timing is perfect. And I met him a couple years out of high school, and we met amongst a bunch of friends. It's funny because I would hang out with that same group of friends, and he was never there when I'd hang out with them. So there was just one day where it happened, and it was just like sparks flew, and that's how I met him.
What was the sparks? Because clearly you guys didn't meet, but the universe put it together at the right alignment. But what was it that caused that spark? Because this is the guy you really knew of, but you wasn't hanging around him.
Yeah, the spark was the second we met. We couldn't stop talking. We just had so much in common. We just had so much to talk about, even at such a young age, because I was 19 at the time. He was 22, and we just hit it off.
What were you talking about at 19 and 20 that you just kept talking nonstop?
We were talking about, I was very ambitious. Like, I wanted to start a business. I had all these hopes and dreams. He loved them too and was like totally on board with that. So one of the first conversations we were having is just business conversations and like getting to know each other. And then him making me laugh, of course, was like a huge thing. I need someone with a good sense of humor and somebody that I can totally feel safe with emotionally, and he just seemed to fit that mold for me. And also just a really decent guy who loved God and was willing to serve God. That was a huge must for me in finding a life partner. And so it just came together so well. You're
19 and 20, 21 or 22,
22.
And you're talking nonstop. What was some of the things you was talking about on your business aspect that he was on board with that you thought was pretty kind of crazy?
Oh man, you're like digging into like old memories. Deep. I remember at that time I really wanted to do real estate stuff. I was really like, I want to get all these investment properties and I want to do this and this. And so that was a lot of things I was talking about, is that once upon a time I wanted to be an attorney, but that like sold really quick at a young age, because I'm not like, I don't know. It was just not my thing. So we talked about, those were mainly the two topics. When we first got married, he grew up cleaning carpets. His dad had a carpet cleaning business. So right when we got married, we started a carpet cleaning business. So we didn't start into the real estate stuff, but we started right into this carpet cleaning business. So we kind of segued into a business mindset world right when we got married.
Did you want to be a carpet cleaner?
No.
Was that what he was laughing about? Because he was like, I know this is not your dream.
No, at the time, I think everything gives you experience. So that was a really good experience. And you look back on life and you can just be grateful for everything that you have. And that was just one of those things that led you to the next step in your life. And so we look at it as that, like, that was a great thing for us to have when we were first married. And it was a great stepping stone to the next thing. So
you were in beautiful Utah. And let me tell you where I'm going with this. So the viewers can understand your story. I saw the timeline. So I'm taking people down that timeline to where we're at currently, but I'm taking them back a little bit. So you're in beautiful Utah, a lot to see out there, hills, mountains, snow. Oh my God. When did he pop the question? When did marriage pop up into your life?
Okay, I'm from Utah, like you said, and a common thing here in Utah,
you get married.
You would get married pretty quick. So my husband had served a mission for our church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints here. So among that community, we tend to get married quickly when we find someone, because when your values align and you both have God at the forefront of your relationship, then things just seem to fall into place. So from when we were dating to married, it was 5.5 months. So
wow, that's quick.
But listen, we've been married 21 years, so it was a great decision for us. So we just knew. It was just like one of those things where it's just like it clicked. We just knew that it was right. I knew that he had MS when we got married, so it was just like I knew what I was going into when we got married. And yeah, he just popped the question, and it was great. Yeah, he's a good guy. I'm
glad you're smiling. That's what I want to see before we get started. So you said you knew he had MS. Was this generational? Like, did other members of his family have MS as well, or is it just him?
He has one uncle that has MS, and I'm not sure at what time he got diagnosed at. I mean, I'm not sure if that was before or after my husband was diagnosed. I'd have to ask him, but he was diagnosed at age 17. So no one else in his family, his immediate family, has it, or even like, I don't believe his cousins or anything have it. So he's kind of a monopoly there.
Right. When you're talking about MS, did you do any research on this at all to find out what could possibly happen as opposed to what's less likely to happen?
You know what? I think there's a reason for everything. One of the things that gave me an experience in life was one of my parents' really good friends, and we're friends with their family. They lived kitty corner from us in our home here in Utah. Their dad had MS. I remember seeing a picture of him standing up, this man that had MS. There's a picture of him holding me when I was just an infant, and he was standing up. But my entire life, I knew him in a wheelchair. So, and like an electronic wheelchair. So from that point, from when I was a baby to probably 3 or 4 years old, probably 4 years old, I just remember him being in a wheelchair.
Right.
I that was the only real thing that I knew, is that MS can cause you to be debilitated physically. So that was all I went into knowing when I married my husband, is thinking at some point my husband could be in a wheelchair.
Knowing that, how did that make you feel? Because you're in love, you want to you keep your marriage going, but still in the back of your mind, you remember an encounter of someone that had MS and holding you, standing up, holding you, and then here he is later in a wheelchair. Did this ever keep clogging in your mind? Is this going to happen? Is there a possibility this will never happen to my husband?
You know, yes, I had that all of the time. One of the first experiences with that, I was pregnant with my first baby. She'll be 19 in a couple of months.
Okay.
We went into the hospital to deliver her. And when I was pregnant with, okay, I'll back up. When I was pregnant with her, my husband started getting numbness in his feet that crawled all the way up to the middle part of his back. So he was walking with a limp and not, he even would put his shoes on the wrong feet sometimes because his feet were just so numb.
Right.
When we went to the hospital to deliver my baby, her name's Andy, I remember the nurse, I delivered the baby, and I remember the nurse taking the baby from me, because in the hospital we were at, they walked down the hall to wash the baby at that time. So the nurse hands the baby over to my husband and said, "We're going to go wash or give your baby a bath." And my husband hands our baby right back to the nurse and said, "I can't walk with my baby." And I remember the nurse kind of looking at him like, "You are so young. Why can't you hold your baby?" Like kind of this weird look.
Right.
And I remember watching the two of them walk out the door, and my husband was limping alongside her. And my thought at that time was, this could be our only baby that we have. We might be on the road to the wheelchair route. So at that time, that was one time when reality really hit me, as I was thinking, maybe we had planned to have a family, but I was like, maybe this is it, because if his health declines, then I don't know that we can keep having kids. From that moment on, it was a lot of back and forth in my mind thinking, I wonder what life is going to be like. But then his symptoms slowly went away after about 8 months. And I didn't think he had any symptoms for about 11 years after that. And
how old was he when you had your first child?
How old was he?
Yeah.
I would probably 24.
Okay, so he was still young, still active.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden it goes away. Did he share with you maybe other symptoms that he was feeling outside of the numbness in his foot?
Yeah, numbness in his feet and all the way up his legs, the middle part of his back. His hands were a bit numb as well. Fatigue. He had a lot of fatigue. He'd work a lot. So it was more than just the average, like go to work and a little exhausted. He was like plastered. By the time the weekend came, he just was in bed all weekend. So I have a young baby. He's in bed all weekend because he's dealing with the fatigue and all of that. So those were his symptoms that he had.
But you later wind up having a total of 6 kids, correct?
Yep, we had 5 more babies after that one, so 6 total.
Now you're probably thinking, wow, he's in good shape. He's got perfect family. You guys are going on. When did things begin to change, and about what age?
Let's see. 2013, so nearly 11 years ago. I was watching his moods change. He would get really upset over something, which was really out of character. Not just upset, but it was like you couldn't rationalize with him at all. Like I don't know how to make that. I think that there are people that are just like that in general, but my husband was not that way. He was just we could have a good conversation. If I had something that bothered me, he would listen to me. We had a really good communication. Not that our marriage was perfect. It was just we knew how to communicate well.
Mhm.
So when he would have these symptoms, I mean, well, it was a symptom. When he would have these moments where he'd get really upset over things, they would last for days at a time. And I didn't know what to make of it. It was just like I kind of just was walking on eggshells. And so that was 2013. I was pregnant with my fifth baby. And to be honest, I thought that because I was like 30, 32, something like that. Well,
Mhm.
anyway, I was thinking, is this what a midlife crisis looks like? Because I had no idea. I had only heard about it. And so I'm like,
Right.
maybe there's something he's experiencing that I don't know about. But I kind of just kept it to myself because I had no idea it was a symptom of MS. So from 2013 to 2019, those mood swings got worse and worse. And he started going the other way where he'd get really depressed and then get really upset within like a 15-minute span of time.
When did you realize that this needed to be addressed? I mean, it didn't get to the point to where it was endangering you or endangering the children. It was probably hurting him more. Did he realize to some degree, what was happening to him? Did he feel himself going in and out of these different states of mood swings and depressions and so forth? Did he feel any of this at all?
He did at first when I'd explain it to him. He wouldn't get it right in the middle of it. Like in 2013 when that was all going on, I'm like,
Mhm.
what was that? Why were you acting that way? But it was after a week of him being like, I'm so sorry, I don't know what got into me. Like he would come out of it kind of and
Right.
just be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I wasn't acting myself. So he had moments like that, but the further he progressed, the less he noticed it. It just seemed like it was normal to him. Like these mood swings, it just seemed like he felt so right. Like, no, this is how this is totally rational what I'm thinking. And it really wasn't. And his work started noticing it. I
Now,
had
did he work for himself? Because you mentioned his dad had a cleaning business. So did he work for himself, taking over the cleaning business?
at that time, so when we were first married, we owned a carpet cleaning business. He grew up cleaning carpets with his dad. And then when we first got married, we bought our own carpet cleaning business. But at this time, he was actually teaching seminary, which is here in Utah, we have these buildings right outside the high schools and junior highs that are for seminary, Christian religion institute,
Okay.
where you can go, and that's a class at school. You take a release time class and go to seminary. My husband was a seminary teacher for our church there.
Okay.
So during that time, he was teaching junior high and high school students, but at work, they were noticing these behaviors too. And his boss had asked me, like, are you noticing this at home? And I said, yes, I am. But at the time, I'm just kind of thinking like the midlife crisis thing or something going on with him. I had never lived with somebody who had a mental illness. So the whole brain sickness type of a thing was very not foreign, like I've heard about it, but it was foreign to me to experience it firsthand. I was going to say that when I started to notice, I had never told my parents about a single fight that me or my husband had during our entire marriage. But in 2018, I remember just seriously noticing that me and my kids needed help because I was constantly trying to balance my husband to make sure he didn't do something that was unsafe because I could see something was wrong with him, but I was wanting to make sure he didn't do something that was unsafe and also keep my kids protected. And so I called my mom and dad and I just said, I need to tell you guys what's going on in my life because I have no idea. And I explained to them the recent incident that I had with him. And my parents dove in to help. I got his family on board, but they complicated things a little more. They made life a little bit harder for me specifically. And
How's
so,
that?
I remember my dad telling me at the time, my dad just said, give them some time. You've been dealing with this for a while. I was really upset. So I call my parents and I tell them, and my dad at the time, because his family is like trying to protect him, and this is our brother and this is our son. And my dad gave me some great advice and just said, you have been doing this for a long time. And so you're at your max. And he said, just give them some time to wrap their minds around what's going on. And so although they were doing some mean things and almost blaming me, which is very common in the caregiver world, family members don't know how to react and they're in denial. So there was some of that going on with his family. And it just made things complicated because
What were they in denial of? Because had he been diagnosed yet? He hasn't even been diagnosed with anything yet. So
no.
why would they put up resistance? I guess for fear, because they probably know what's about to happen, because you said somebody in their family, their uncle, they probably seen the same symptoms in the closest person there, which was their family member.
You know, that actually wasn't it at all. It was really, in fact, I've had to create some boundaries with his family because of that, which is totally okay that they have their own difference of opinion. But I think they're, I'm not quite sure, to be honest. Some of the things that have come, that they've done or continued to do or even say about me have been really shocking, just because I feel like they are some really great people. But once I started telling them about my husband, the things that they had done, like I'd have doctors tell me, hey, you need to get this and this and this. Behind my back, they're trying to do the opposite. So it was a really strange thing. They were helping me for a little bit with watching my husband when he first got diagnosed. And then I had to say, you guys are, they were trying to, they almost treated it like it was a divorce situation. I think that's the perfect way. Like they're siding with him, and they're trying to create teams of, this is Reed's team and this is Lindsay's team and we're on Reed's team, instead of being like, oh, we can see what's wrong. But even after my husband was diagnosed, it has still continued. So I've just had to create boundaries with people in my life, and that's okay. And it's okay that they, even if they don't like me, let's say they just don't like me, that's okay too. I'm trying to keep my family together, and that's the most important thing to me. But there are so many people, with this said, there are so many people who dive in to help. And also with my husband's family, it's not like it's everybody in his family. There have been some of his family members have been extremely loving and extremely helpful. There's just been some aspects of it where I've had to kind of keep my distance a little bit.
When did his workplace recognize something's not right? You've been recognizing something ain't right. You shared it with your parents that something is not right. When did you what was the final straw that you felt uncomfortable, that you said, now I got to take you to the professionals and find out what's going on? There had to be that point to validate everything that you're seeing and at the workplace, because the parents probably at this point, if they're seeing it, they're not acknowledging it. But what was the part that you was in fear of, that you said, we need to go and find out what's going on?
Looking back on that time, because I didn't know what was going on, and like I said, you experience something new. It was totally new to me. So I have compassion on myself that it was totally new. From about 2016 to 2019, at work, my husband was starting to miss some work. Maybe it was about 2017. Yeah. But 2016 to 2019, during that time, missing work, or he was very, very outgoing. And for example, on a Saturday morning, my husband would be awake, out mowing the lawn. Our lawn would be immaculate. The garage would be cleaned. He was just very like driven, ambitious, knew he had things he needed to get done. Those things started to go away. And I found myself with an infant, and I'm outside mowing the lawn, and my husband's laying on the couch, and I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. I also, with work, he was missing work. Or if he wasn't missing work, I was sitting there thinking, he can't lose his job. So we don't know what's going on with him, but he can't lose his job. So there were days where, I don't know how to explain it, depression and anxiety, kind of what you see on my social media pages. He'd just be kind of in this like,
had the ability to communicate, the main focus that brought you guys together. How handicapped was that now? Because clearly he's dealing with something foreign to him as well. How crippled was the communication at that point? You know, were you afraid to go and talk to him because he didn't know what was going on? You didn't know what was going on, but you knew something was there. Did the communication just collapse?
The communication, I look back on this, and I was trying to communicate with him like a husband and wife communicate with each other.
Right.
But he wasn't. Looking back on it now, I can see that the MS affects my husband like dementia, especially at that time.
I was getting ready to ask you that. Did it feel like, even when you took him in to the doctors, did they diagnose him as early stages of dementia?
No, they didn't, because progressive MS comes with memory loss. But okay, I have heard people say that there is something called MS dementia on my social media pages, that they've been diagnosed with that. My husband has not been diagnosed with that, but if there is a diagnosis for that, I would guarantee that is what my husband does have, because he does have the short-term memory loss. So when I look back on it now, and I was trying to rationalize with him, but it's like trying to rationalize with somebody who's at the early stages of dementia, where they think that what they are thinking and saying is so right, but it really isn't. They're in their minds, they are so right. And you're like, no, this isn't making sense. And so, yeah, I had moments where it was like, I just was not certain as to the future of my own marriage, even, because I was like, what is going on? Because I didn't know what was going on. It was very unstable.
Well, you shared with me during the pre-interview a moment that I would have been like totally petrified when he went to the store and you asked him to pick out certain things, and his continence, his ability to remember was completely, almost none there.
Yeah, I would say, hey, go to the store and get these 3 things. And those 3, he would come home with one of those 3 things. And it wouldn't even really be the right one that we normally got either. It was like he'd come home with the different one that we didn't normally get. So not that it was always that way, but he would come home, and I was just like, well, what happened to the other items that I asked you to get? So I'm like, God, I'll go back to the store and get the items. Like, I don't know why you couldn't get them in the first place. But looking at that now, I have compassion on him, that I'm like, oh my gosh, he was sick in his head. And I was looking at him frustrated and even resentful at moments, where I was frustrated with the situation, because I was my life got flipped upside down during that time. I didn't realize all that I was taking on until hindsight. And I was looking at it thinking, I was already single parenting during that time and caregiving for my husband, but I didn't realize that's what role I had switched to. I just thought, he's going to get better, things are going to be fine. And then they didn't.
So you wind up taking him. When was the moment that you said, okay, I have to do something? And took him to the hospital. And when did you get the disturbing news that the MS is now become progressive MS?
The disturbing news, but it was also a sense of relief. But I'll get to that. Our lives were just so unstable at that time. My husband was missing work. I was having to go teach some of his classes for him. He'd come with me, but he'd sit there and I'd teach the classes. There were moments like that that I look back on and think, like, maybe I don't know, but in my mind I'm thinking, oh, there's just something wrong for right now. Like, I didn't know it was a permanent thing. So there were those things, and leading up to that time, he was missing work. He was even getting frustrated with his classes, and it was starting to affect his teaching kids. He was the teacher before this. He was the teacher that everybody wanted to be in his class. Everyone loved him. He was so charismatic and outgoing. Everybody loved him, like adults and kids. They all just loved being in his class, loved talking to him. So for me to go teach his classes and for him to start getting frustrated with his classes when he'd teach, that was a very out of character thing for him. I remember his boss saying that he wasn't able to bring a lesson full circle. So he'd start here, and he said it was just all over the place, and he wouldn't end up in the same, like if you're teaching a class, you want it to wrap it up in the same theme of what you're teaching. And he wasn't able to do that. So his boss was asking me if I was noticing this. And I just said, yes, I'm noticing this at home. So there was that moment. I was driving with my husband in a car. There were lots of moments leading up to it, but there was a moment a week where I showed my husband this song, and I was like, hey, listen to this song. It's cool. I wish I could remember the song. If it played, I would remember what song it was, but I was like, hey, listen to this song. And he's like, this is such a cool song. I've never heard it before. And then we get back in the car the next day. We're in the car. I play the song for him again. I'm like, let's just play this, because it was just right there. I had just previously played it. So I'm like, we'll just listen to this again. So I play it, and he goes, this is a cool song. I've never heard it before. And I get in the car again later that week and play that same song. And he said the same thing. This is a cool song. I've never heard it before. But I was just like, I just played this for you. So I tested it out a fourth time, and he said the same thing. He didn't remember that song 4 times in a row in the same week that he had heard it. And I remember just turning to him, because I was in the passenger seat, because he could drive at that time. I remember just turning and looking at him and just really sitting there, like staring, being like, there's something seriously wrong, and we need to get down to the bottom of it. So at that point, I started calling the mental hospital, because he was physically okay, but mentally there was something wrong. We were dealing with depression, deep depression, and then rage modes. It was just like off the charts. I didn't know what bipolar was, but I'm like, is this bipolar?
Right.
But I started calling the mental hospital, because I'm like, at what point do you check someone into a mental hospital? I'd never done that before. And I called the mental hospital about, I don't know, probably 4 times, just to be like, tell me what this all entails. And I'm like, do you think my husband qualifies? And so eventually, because my life was just, I have 6 young kids. I'm caregiving for my husband, but I didn't know. I was kind of angry at him, thinking like, why are you treating me like this? Right. And I check him into the mental hospital. And from there, the doctors, that was one of the most relieving moments. They kept him there for, I think I checked him in on like a Thursday, and they kept him all weekend. And the following Monday, I went back to the doctor, and that's when the doctor had said, we believe that his MS is causing this, and we want to get down to the bottom of it. But they were seeing all these things that I was seeing. They were seeing the short-term memory loss. They were seeing the depression and anxiety, and even a little bit of the mood swings. He didn't show the mood swings too bad to other people, but he did at home, because we're his family And I guess that's what they tend to do. You do that to the people you love the most. And
How did you even get him? Because he's not all the way, gone. How did you even convince him to get checked in to the hospital? And more importantly, did you share what you was about to do with your family and his family?
Yes, I shared it with everybody.
Were they on board?
Yes, my family was for sure on board because I was calling my mom and dad and being like, this is what I'm dealing with. My mom and dad became they didn't, but they could be licensed therapists today just from the challenges they went through with me. They were so sweet with me and just so kind. Everyone I think was on board, even though his family was still, I don't know the word for it. I don't know if denial is the word. I'm trying to figure out what's going on, but his family was for sure on board with that because they could see some of the things that were happening. So all of us together were like, this is going to happen.
How did you get him on board?
I had kind of let him know over a couple of days because seriously, we were in emergency mode all of the time. Like It was like he'd be fine. He might be fine for a couple of days, but I was nervous to be around him because he'd get really upset really easily. But then he was more so for 6 months straight. It was like he was diving into a place of depression and coming out into a rage mode and going right back in it. So a few times a day, I was managing this with my 6 kids, and I was just like, what is going on with my life? And it's emotionally wearing on someone. And not to be selfish on my side, but for me, I was the one that had to keep the family afloat during that time. So I was like, what is going on? So yeah, everybody was on board with checking him into the hospital. When I told him, I was just like, this needs to happen. We need to figure out what's going on with you. And I kind of went into the things like your work is noticing it. I'm noticing it. Your family's noticing it. My family's noticing it. And it was at a moment where he was like, okay, so I got him in the car. We drove down there and yeah, he loves me enough to listen to my counsel, even during those times where he was moody. So I said that we need to figure this out. And so, yes, I talked him into going, and he was very, very willing.
So when the doctors share with you the situation that's taking place, what do you do now? You know, they're not going to keep him. He now is your responsibility for real. The thing that you dreaded is now happening. How do you now function and keep your family together? Because right now it's crisis. Let's just be real. It's crisis mode. You got to basically understand not just MS, but progressive muscular sclerosis. Now you really got to dive into it because it's really elevating. How do you do that?
Okay, let me take you back to that time. So in 2019, when they had told me this could be dealing with his MS, they got neurology on board, and they kept my husband for 15 days. During that time when he was in the hospital, when I found out that it was his MS, I had to go meet with his boss and tell his boss what was going on. His boss said we need to put him on disability because they were having to watch him at class anyway, because they were like, why is he acting this way? And luckily his boss had been with him for years and saw the change in his personality and the change in who he was. So he was so loving and so kind. But I just remember crying like at that meeting with his boss, just thinking, are you sure? Like, are you sure that we need to put him on disability? It seemed like this. I remember asking his boss, like, what if he gets better? If he gets better, can he come back to work? Because in my mind, I'm like, this is just so shocking. Like, are you sure this is the right move? That just seems so dramatic.
Mhm.
But we put him on disability. He said, yes, if he gets better, then we'll for sure consider that. So during that time after they diagnosed him with progressive MS, I realized we just need to put him on disability. So I started the paperwork. I was doing all of that while he was in the hospital. The day that I met with his boss, I got in my car and I drove home, and I was just in shock. I don't know how else to say it. I didn't even know what to think. And I remember walking in the door of my home, and my kids were all just laughing in my living room and just having a good time. And I remember just being so grateful that they didn't have to carry the weight that I was carrying, and that they were still just so happy. And I walk into my room and I shut my bedroom door, and I just kneeled down on my floor, and I was just like, I just remember kneeling down to pray and not even knowing what to say. I remember I just knelt there, just kind of like, my life, I just got, if I can say it this way, I just got dealt the hand that I'm going to be the mother to my 6 children. I was a stay-at-home mom at that time. So I'm going to be a mother to my 6 children. I'm going to be a caregiver to my husband. And now I'm going to be the full-time provider of my family. And it just hit me hard. And I was just kneeling in my room thinking, how on earth am I going to do this? I don't know how I'm going to do this. And I remember I was praying, and I really just wasn't praying about anything, just more like sitting there. And I remember having this this moment that God said, I'm going to be your companion throughout the rest of your life. I know that your husband can't be there for you, so I'm going to help you. And that was such a comforting thing for me during that time, that I think that that's how God is with all of us. So when we go through hard times and we invite him in our life, he will be with us during those times when we don't know what to do. And so that was kind of a pivotal moment for me, where my husband's in the hospital, which was emotionally just, I'm grieving the life that I once had with my husband, and I'm grieving the life that I once had too at the same time. I didn't know that that's what was happening, but now I look back on it and it's just like my world got flipped upside down, and I had to create a whole new identity, who Lindsay was alone, even though I had my husband, but he wasn't really my husband. He's not the same man he used to be. And I had to reinvent who I was as a person. And that is a process. So,
Lindsay,
anyway.
you mentioned something, and thank you so much for coming on and sharing such an impactful story, because you and educating us as well through your journey. But you said something that was powerful. You walked into your house and you saw your children laughing. What were they laughing? What were they laughing? And was your husband there at that time that they were laughing?
No, my husband wasn't there. My husband was still in the hospital.
Okay.
And I went and talked to his boss. This was right after the meeting I had just had with his boss, and I walk in the front door. They were just being kids, and they were just playing with each other. I just remember I don't know what they were playing. They were just running around my living room, just laughing and having fun. And it was so good to hear those noises when I was feeling so weighed down with this life change all of a sudden. And so I don't know exactly what they were laughing about, but yes, my husband was in the hospital.
Speaking of your children, again, they're older now. What's it like in your household now? They're older. He's home with you. You're taking care of him. What's that like? And how long did it take to create that environment for you and your family, that you guys are together again? You are happy. There are some struggles, but you made it happen.
When this all happened, my husband gets done with the hospital and life starts. And the thing about the whole process that I didn't notice is that I was a caregiver before I officially knew I was a caregiver. My kids were also caregivers, because if my husband had a moment where he exploded, like just got really mad, my oldest daughter had to take my younger kids and, make sure that they're okay, and we're gonna go downstairs and play, you guys. And I would try to sit there with my husband and get him to a better place. So during that time, it was a process. It was a process of, my kids looked at their dad like, oh, my dad, like if he'd get upset at him, but it was irrational. My kids were looking at him and would cry because they're like, my dad just got mad at me. So it took them a moment to process that as well, where now he'll have moments where he gets upset, not as often as he used to, but my kids know exactly what's going on. They don't sit there and take it too personally, because they understand what's going on with my husband. My kids, I do have young kids. My youngest is, she'll be 9 in a couple of weeks. So I have a 9, 11, 14, 16, 18, and almost 20-year-old. So the older ones really saw what was going on, because this has been going on since 2013. So my older kids kind of grew up with, they saw the side where he'd go out and play with them and all of that, to his decline. So it was a process for all of us to see that happen.
How do you, as a caregiver now, and your children are younger, how do you teach them at such a young age how to understand the different things that their father is going through, and that it's not directed at them? This is what's happening now. How do you do that with the younger kids?
With the younger kids, well, even when my older kids were younger, I would have to say, because my oldest daughter at the time when he got diagnosed was 14. So I had 6 kids under the age of 14 when my husband got diagnosed. And I would always just pull them aside and just say, Dad's not in his right mind. He's not meaning that. Like, you've got to understand that Dad isn't being who he normally is. This isn't your dad. Your dad is a very fun-loving guy. There's something going on with him where he's not acting himself. So that was kind of the consoling that I'd have with our kids. And multiple times over and over, I'd talk to them. I tried to pull them in my room just to have a private chat with each one of them, to just to do a check-in with them. And sometimes I'd find that they were in tears, and sometimes they were fine. Now that they're all older, they love their relationship with their dad. He lives in an assisted living home around the corner from us, but our caregiving roles have changed. So now that when he's home, we caregive for him, and we take care of him, and we feed him, but now we can divide that with the caregivers that are at his facility, and we can have a little bit. It took away a lot of the caregiving that we need to do on the daily basis, and allowed us to step back into the roles as wife and kids. That the process of getting to a place to be happy took a lot of me realizing I needed to get honest with myself about who I was. I needed to figure out, I needed just to figure out what it was just a process. I don't know how to explain all of that, but I had to get to a place where I was okay and compassionate towards my husband and what was going on with him. But like I said, it is a process. It's not like we've always laughed and had fun. So we've always had that aspect in our marriage. But during those years, they were really hard, and there was a lot of ups and downs. And I even at times was like wondering, like, what's going to happen? Like, is this going to last? Or how do we keep doing life like this? And it's been a process to get to a place where we all are thriving.
I'm trying to think how to say this. What else? You definitely love your husband. It started out like most relationships, and despite the bumpy curve that just happened, you definitely still have that love and for your husband. What did you have to really, what did you, now everything is in place. What's different? What's really has changed with the magnitude of family for you now?
One thing I've realized is we all have choices. We all have choices every day of our lives. I still have a choice in this matter, and I choose this every single day because life is so much more than just about me. It's about my kids. It's about my husband. And if I were my husband didn't mean to do this. He didn't mean to be diagnosed with this. And if I were in his shoes, I would hope that our marriage was more resilient than just saying, peace out, you're sick, you don't offer me anything, so I'm out of here. And there's so much more depth to life when you allow God to help you and guide you through your day and do what you know he's asking you to do. Because one thing that my parents constantly reminded me of during these times that, like you said, crisis mode is the perfect way to put it. I just didn't know how to manage all of these emotions that came with it. And my parents would constantly remind me and say, you may be going through this thing, not just for yourself, but for your kids. And that was thinking about that was powerful for me because I was thinking, how is this impacting my kids? What can I do to soften the blow that they don't have the dad, what do you call it? The Disney dad that they dreamed of. They're having to deal with a different circumstance, and they're learning a whole different set of life challenges and life trials. They're learning how to work through them at such a young age. And how do I soften that for them, but also allow them to grow during this time? And just knowing that my kids are learning something from all of this is a strong why for me. It's what am I doing this for? And keeping my family together feels so happy to me and so fulfilling to me.
How can the viewers reach out to you? And once again, thank you so much for coming on and sharing such a beautiful, impactful story of keeping resilience and that beast frame of mind together. How can the viewers support you? How can they reach out to you? I'm pretty sure there's other individuals that have a similar story that would love to pick up the phone and sometimes just to talk. How can they reach out to you?
Through all of this, I am a certified life coach, and I've changed my whole career into helping caregivers of loved ones and people with autoimmune diseases. I also have a parent company to all of that I help people who are going through something that have forgotten or feel they don't have time to take care of themselves during these really tragic times. Whatever tragic time they are going through, I have started up free support groups, a free caregiver support group, a free autoimmune support group, and we are launching it's called 2-Hour You, 2-Hour University. You spend 2 hours a day working on you because you are more capable than you ever thought you were. Our programs are designed to help people realize that if they change just one person, then they can change all of humanity, and changing one person starts with changing themselves. So our programs are designed to help people in those positions to help change their lives. And they can reach out to me on my social media pages. The link for all of those programs is in my bio on Instagram at LEWKELLY06 on Instagram. You can reach out to me there, and there's an email and a contact in there.
You know what? My heart is out for you, for all you've been through and what you're doing. Beautiful story once again. Thanks for sharing that story. I'm pretty sure you're going to get a lot of phone calls because there's somebody else that's going through the same thing that you just went through. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Crayton Show.